Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. We are about to report about conflict management. By the way, I'm Rosemary Mago with Fe May Elmido. So, so we are about to start now. So why do you think, or when you hear the word conflict, what do you think and what images comes to you? So conflict is a disagreement between two or more peoples who have differences in goals or methods or dealing with a situation. Ano naman to? So what is conflict management? Conflict management is a practice of being able to identify and handle conflicts sensibly, fairly, and efficiently. Managers need to resolve conflict in a workplace quickly and professionally. Conflict management also is something that companies and managers need to deal with it. Conflict significantly affects employees' morale, turnover, and legitimations which affects the prosperity of a company. Why conflicts arise? Every organizational encounters conflicts on a daily basis. The conflicts cannot be avoided, but it is possible to manage them in a way that we recognize them on time. It is necessary to continuously track the organizational signals which point to their existence. If we do not react duly, it can lead to the situation that the conflict itself manages the organization. One of the more important determinants of productivity, efficiency, and performance. And finally, job contentment is also the conflict as an independent variable of organizational behavior. Conflict emanates from more than one source, and so their true origin may be hard to identify. But there are important initiators of conflict situations include like people disagree. People disagree for a number of reasons. One, they see things differently because of different in understanding and viewpoint, which means most of these differences are usually not important. Personality differences or clashes is emotionally needs may cause conflicts. Like people perceive interference from others, people feel disrespected by others, um, people have different goals for situations, people have different preference for how to achieve the same goals. Second, people have different styles, principles, values, belief, and slogan which determine their choices and objectives, which means we describe behavior rather than judging the person, but instead we need to find a shared solution rather telling others what and how to behave. And we need to convey a belief in the equality or values of the other and try to remain open-minded. Third, people have different ideologically and philosophically outlooks as in case of different political parties. As in this case of different political parties, their concepts, objectives, and ways of reacting to various situations are different. This often creates also conflicts among them. Like, as a conflict behavior occurs like we judge, evaluate the behavior as purposive and intentional. We assess others as difficult. We look for additional evidence of our assessment that we find it. We feel confirmed in acting out against the other, and we shut down communications with others. Fourth, conflict situations can arise because people have different status. When people at higher levels in the organizational feel indignant about suggestions for change put forward from their subordinates or associates, it provokes conflict. By tolerating and allowing such suggestions, potential conflict can be prevented. Next, people have different thinking styles which encourage them to disagree, leading to conflict situations. Certain thinking styles may be useful for certain purposes. Next, people are supposed to disagree under particular circumstances, such as in sports. Number two, people are concerned with fear, force, fairness, or funds. Fear relates to imaginary concern about something which might happen in the future. One may feel like setbacks or kapakyasan, or disgrace or embarrassment, reprisal or revenge, or hindrance mga babag. This which can lead to conflict situations. And force is necessary ingredients to any conflict situations. Force may be ethical or emotional. It could be withdrawal of cooperations or approval. These forces are instrumental in generation, strengthening, and terminating conflicts. Next, fairness refers to an individual sense of what is right and what is not right. Fundamental factors learned to early childhood, since this sense of fairness determines the moral values of an individual. People have different moral values and accordingly appreciate situations in different ways, creating complex situations. The next, funds of course can cause conflict, but can also force conclusions through acceptable to the conflicting parties. The cost of being in conflict may be measurable in terms of money, or measurable being expressed in terms of human lives, suffering, diversions, or skilled labor, neglect, or loss of morals and self-esteem. So that ends of my report. So we need, for the second reporter, let's listen to Miss Fee Elmido.
Thank you so much, my beautiful classmate, Rosemary Mago. So, good evening, Ma'am Rose. Good evening, classmates. Ako ba tayo classmates? So, my topic is all about organizational and interpersonal conflict. So, my topic is all about conditions creating complex situations. So, na ay mga certain conditions na maka-cause of conflict in a given situation. So, conflict is defined as a clash um, between individuals arising out of a difference in thought, process, attitude. So, makalain-lain na ito mga kinaiya, understanding, interest, requirements, and even sometimes perceptions. So, a conflict results in heated arguments. So, dili man gid na nato malikayan nga naagi tay mga dili man gid sa tanang panahon magkasinabot jud ang usag-usa. So, naadyoy mo kuan ka nang maka-trigger ba na dili bitaw mo agree sa unsay gustong hitabo sa usa. So, maka-create siya or heated arguments. Physical abuses also can can trigger conflict. And also definitely loss of peace and harmony. A conflict can actually change relationships. So, friends can become foes or a result of conflict. So, muna nga, sometimes kwanta nga, friends are the best enemies. Sometimes. So, conflict can occur at any place, be it in organization, for example, groups, and even at our homes. So, sa ato ang tagsatagsa nga mga panimalay, naagi times nga giaway gid ang sa usa ka ang mga igsuon, ginikanan. So, dili gid na siya malikayan ang conflict. So, whenever two individuals express ways in different manner, a conflict arises. In a layman's language, conflict is nothing but a fight either between two individuals or among group members. So no two individuals can think alike, and there is definitely a difference in their thought process as well as their understanding. Disagreements among individuals lead to conflict and fights. Conflict arises whenever individuals have different values, opinion, needs, so interest mo to ganiha, unable to find middle way. According to modern theory, conflicts between human beings are inescapable, inevitable, di siya malikayan. So they appear as a natural result of change and can be valuable to the organization if managed competently. So pwede ay ang conflict ma-turn into positive. So current theory by Kirchhoff and Adams consider modernism as a device for bringing together various ideas and viewpoints into a new and different fusion. And atmosphere of tension and hence conflict is essential in any organization working with ideas. So there are 4 distinct conflict conditions. So according to Kirchhoff and Adams of 1982. So number 1 is high stress environments, ambiguous roles and responsibilities, multiple boss situation, prevalence of advanced technology. So so for number sana to ang high stress environment, for example, murag na surround na atay certain situation sa ato ang environment, let's say sa ato ang workplace nga mas stressful environments, no, say mo kuanta mo habol ta sa sales quota nato o sa real estate, mga manghalin ta kay na si natay gigupod nga quota kay para maka adto tag somewhere na atay trip to Jerusalem. Guwap, seryoso ra kay ka.
Binura ko ni mo, Guaps.
So mo to siya. Having emotional financial problems, yun natay mga problema sa kwarta. So mas stress, kuan dyan na siya makonsider nga high stress environments. So also kanang natay mga balatian sa atong pamilya, so usa sa na siya nga maka-cause. So ang ambiguous roles and responsibilities, for example, aning ambiguous, ambiguity occurs when people are unclear or uncertain about their expectations within a certain role, typically the role in the job or workplace. So dili siya klaro kung unsa ba gid yang job description, panalitan siya tong tig order, tig purchaser siya niya. Di ay to kuan pa siya compute pa siya sa halin o unsa ba, so walay klaro ang unsa gid ang iyahang job description kung sa workplace ni siya. So third, multiple boss situation. So it is common in startups nga business, kay daghan man kag amo, makonsider nimo nga daghan kag boss, so makuan ka, ma-stress ka or makakos siya og conflict kay dili man daghan man kag sundon. So and family owned business kay daghan man kag amo, basta kay multiple boss situation sa masabtan ra. Number 4, prevalence of advanced technology. So ang meaning ani, for example, kay a new employees at an organization may be uncomfortable with new technology and are technophobic to some degree, kanang dili kayo ka-adapt bitaw dayon sa technology, so nakakos og conflict kay siyempre kung naay bag-o nga technology i-adapt sa company or dili dayon maka-gets niya, dili siya welcoming sa bag-o nga technology, so dili dayon maka-follow nga sa iyahang iyahang na kasanayan. So according to next is the Kirchhoff and Adams explained that there are 4 distinct conflict conditions such as high stress environments. Mao na to siya. So asa naman itong picks? Next daw, Guaps, nakalimot mo unsa to.
8 identified main conditions.
There are 8 identified main conditions which could initiate conflict situation in a given organization. So number 1 is so ganito, Bobs. Pwede ko mo balik. Ay ka na, ambiguous jurisdiction. So ambiguous jurisdiction, which it means it occur when 2 individuals have responsibilities which are interdependent but whose work boundaries and role definitions are not clearly specified. So mo na siya, naglibog sila kung unsa gid ang ilahang work boundaries. So go ang number 2 is next palihog sa slides. Number 2 is goal incompatibility and conflict of interest. So it refers to accomplishment of different but mutually conflicting goals by 2 individuals working together in an organization. So Sorry kay sagot. So, number 3, communication barriers. As difficulties in communicating can cause misunderstanding, which can then create conflict situation. So, dali ra kay masabtan. Number 4, is dependence on one party by another group or individual. So, kanang magsalig ra bitaw sa imong kauban, so pirmi ra magsalig, so maka-create gid na siya og conflict. So number 5, differentiation in organization, where within an organization, subunits are made responsible for different specialized tasks. This creates separation and introduces differentiation. So, maura ba itong GWAPs?
Number 6.
Association of the parties and specialization. So, when individuals specialize in different areas, work in a group, they maybe disagree amongst themselves because they have different goals, views, and methodologies owing to their various backgrounds, training, and experiences. Ano ba to? Ano ba nila slides na ko, Gaps?
Napay sa 8 man ni kabuok.
Ay, ODI. Number 6 man. So, number 7, behavior regulation. Organizations have to have firm regulations for individual behavior to ensure protection and safety. Individuals may perceive these regulations differently, which can cause conflict and negatively affect output. So lastly, number 8, unresolved prior conflict. So katong mga wala pa na settle nga mga conflict bitaw niya mapunan. So it means which remains unsettled over time create anxiety and stress. So katong mga wala pa na settle, katong naay mga ex, dapat move on na, Gops, no?
Mao. Correct.
Yeah. So which can further intensify existing conflicts. So there are 2 types of conflict: substantive conflict and affective conflicts. So for substantive conflict deals with aspect of performance or task and often relate specifically to the project or goals of a team organization. So for example, in a substantive conflicts, it deals with the risk aspect of a team's work. So, for example, conflicts can arise over questions about an individual's performance. So, differing views about the scope of a task or assignment, disparate definitions of acceptable quality. So, murag madung na siya personalay ni siya nga kanang attack or to someone nga dili magkasinabot. So, sa trabaho, or the nature of a project goal. Other substantive conflicts involve how team members work together. These process conflicts often involve disagreements over the strategies, policies, and procedures the group should use in order to complete its task. So for the affective conflicts, also known as personal conflict, revolve around personal disagreements or dislikes between individuals in a team. Katong substantive di ay kay kanang sa group performance. So mo-attack siya sa group kung katong mga differences or katong dili ganahan sa grupo, sabay kanang grupo-grupo nga kuan ba conflict. Kaning affective di ay kay personal mo ni siya. So for affective conflict relates to trouble that develops in interpersonal relationships among team lead members. So while these personal conflicts emerge as people work together, they may have their roots in factors separate from team's purpose and activities. Affective conflicts are often based on personality conflicts, differing communication styles, perceptions, perceptions about level of effort or personal dislikes based on negative past experiences. So katong mga past na lagi guwaps, move on na. So that
Good
would
one
be
din
all.
my time.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, teacher. Good morning, classmate. My report is about organizational and interpersonal conflict. Organizational conflict, whether it be substantive or affective, can be divided into intra-organizational and inter-organizational. First, inter-organizational conflict occurs between two or more organizations. Rahim 2002, for example, when different businesses compete against one another. Two, intra-organizational conflict is conflict within an organization and can be further classified based on scope. Example, departments, work teams, individual. Other classifications are interpersonal, intragroup, and intergroup conflict. Interpersonal conflict refers to conflict between two or more individuals not presenting the group they are a part of. Interpersonal conflict is divided into intragroup and intergroup conflict. Intragroup personal conflict occurs between members of the same group. Intergroup personal conflicts occur between groups. Conflict resolution and conflict management. Conflict resolution involves the reduction, elimination, or termination of all forms and types of conflict. When people talk about conflict resolution, they tend to use terms like negotiation, bargaining, mediations, or arbitration. Business can benefit from appropriate types and levels of conflict. That is the aim of conflict management, and not the aim of conflict resolution. Conflict management does not imply conflict resolution. Conflict management minimizes the negative outcome of conflict and promotes the positive outcomes of conflict. With the goals of improving learning in an organization, organizational learning is important. Properly managed conflict increases learning by increasing the amount of questions asked and encourage people to challenge the status quo. Models of conflict management. There have been many styles of conflict management behavior that have been researched in the past century. One of the earliest, Mary Parker Follett, 1926 to 1940, found that conflict was managed by individuals in three main ways: domination, compromise, and integration. She also found other ways of handling conflict that were employed by organizations such as avoidance and suppression. That's all. Thank you.
So good evening. So this is my report, how to manage conflict. So in managing conflict in the management, it is important. Next arrows. So overall, conflict management should aim to minimize effective conflicts in levels. So the use of appropriate conflict management strategy should effectively bring the first two goals, the parties in conflict. Next, the rows, please. Hinay akong signal. Hello?
Na?
Oh, next, the rows.
Wala,
Next,
wala na.
please. Oh, so how can it be if what so what are the criteria? So organization effectiveness, conflict management should be designed to enhance critical and innovative thinking to learn the process of diagnosis and intervention in the right problems. So the needs of stakeholders, the participation of multiple parties in an organization is sometimes needed in problem-solving process. The challenge would to involve these parties in a collective learning and in organizational effectiveness, ethics. Dali, ha. So having a wise leader is very important. We must behave ethically, should be open to new intervention, and be willing to change his mind. Next rows, please. So the first step is reactionary by assessing the reacting to the conflict. The second step is proactive by determining how to employ reacted to the decision. Next rows, please. Lag kayo kung signal. So the 5 steps to manage information that can lead to Bago. Hello?
Yes, Tere.
Direct
Go.
na yun. Ay lang, i-open mong cam, siguro,
Oh,
Tere.
dili ko kakita sa kuan. Okay, okay na. Okay, close na ko. So, second is to prevent, develop strategies before conflict occurs. The third, identify either interpersonal or procedural move to quickly manage it. Then number fourth is manage. Remember that conflict is emotional, and last, resolve, react without blame, learn through dialogue. Next, the rows, please. Kalag, uy. In dealing a conflict are inescapable in an organization. However, they can use as motivators for a healthy change. A manager should be able to see emerging conflict and take an appropriate preemptive action. Next rows, please.
Next topic is about ways to resolve conflict. When two groups or individuals face a conflict situation, they can react in 4 ways. They can, number one, fight, which is not a beneficious, sound, or gratifying approach to dealing with a conflict situation, as it involves tactics, strategies, offensive and defensive positions, losing and winning grounds, and exposure of weak points. Fighting as a way of resolving a conflict can only be useful in courtroom situations where winning and losing becomes a byproduct of judicial process. Number two, negotiate. Towards a settlement with the other party, negotiations take place within the prevailing situation to do not involve problem solving or designing. Third party roles are very important in bringing the conflicting parties together on some common ground for negotiations. Number three, problem solve, which involves identifying and removing cause of conflict so as to make the situation normal again. However, this may not be easy. It is also possible that the situation may not become normal even after removing the identified cause because of its influence on the situation. Number four, design, which is an attempt towards creativity in making the conflict situation normal. It considers conflicts as situations rather than problems. Designing is not confined to what is already there, but attempts to reach what might be created given a proper understanding of the views and situations of the conflicting parties. The proposed idea should be appropriate and acceptable to the parties in conflict. A third party participates in the design process rather than being just an end part. Our next topic is about international conflict management. International conflict management, special consideration should be paid to conflict management between two parties from distinct cultures. In addition to everyday sources of conflict, misunderstandings, and from the counterproductive pseudo conflicts arise when members of one culture are unable to understand culturally determine differences in communication practices, traditions, and thought literature. Runner re-encountered several episodes where managers from developed countries moved to less developed countries to resolve conflicts within the company and met with little success due to their failure to adapt to conflict management styles of local culture, international conflict management, and the cultural issues associated with it is one of the primary areas of research in the field at the time. As, as existing research is insufficient to deal with the ever increasing contact occurring between international entities. Next topic is about counseling. Counseling, when personal conflict leads to frustration and loss of efficiency, counseling may prove to be a helpful antidote. Although few organizations can afford the luxury of having professional counselors on the staff. Given some training, managers may be able to perform this function. Non-directive counseling or listening with understanding is little more than being a good listener, something every manager should be. Sometimes the simple process of being able to vent one's feelings, that is, to express them to a concerned and understanding listener, is enough to relieve frustration and make it possible for the frustrated individual to advance to a problem-solving frame of mind, better able to cope with a personal difficulty that is affecting to his work adversely. The non-directive approach is one effective way for managers to deal with frustrated subordinates and co-workers. Thank you so much, and that ends my topic.
Good afternoon, Miss Rose Castillo. Good afternoon, classmates. So, I am the last reporter for chapter 8, which tackles about conflict management. So, I will just give a synthesis, very short synthesis on what are the pinpoints and the things that we need to remember about this chapter. So, to start with, we already know what's the word conflict, but conflict management is something that managers and companies needs to deal with because this can really affect the performance and of course the morale of the employees. So normally from the word itself, conflict, of course, no. Um, in reality, we can have these conflicts with our siblings, even with our relationship with other people, our friends. So conflicts would really arise. So, of course, in a workplace, in a company that we are working with, these things are very possible also. So that's why there are things that a management should also do on their part for them to resolve these conflicts. maybe the reasons that conflicts would arise is that, of course, people would really disagree at things at times, and then excuse me, we have different ideas on how things would really work. We have different characteristics, attitudes, and norms that are being exercised at home. So whenever we report to the office or we report at work, we could not um, make things or do things kung unsa ang ato ang naandan sa ato ang kuan. So we should follow protocol. So there are a lot of reasons why conflict would really arise in the workplace. So another thing is that there are four distinct conflict conditions according to Kirchhoff and Adams. So this is the high stress environments, the ambiguous roles and responsibilities, multiple boss situations, prevalence of advanced technology. So these are some of the factors that would really trigger or add on for something to create conflict. So, for example, you are a very strenuous environment, and then there's someone approaching you, doesn't know that you're working so hard on this particular thing. So, there are approaches that maybe it triggers your state on how you work things. So, you tend to maybe um, masyagitan nimo siya like that. So, um, this can be part of um nga maka-trigger gid siya and maka-create gid og conflict within the workplace or even in the environment. And of course, di ba, bisan sa ato ang mga panimalay, kuan jud kaayo nga from time to time, because we have different personalities and characteristics, conflicts would really arise from time to time because knowing each of one is really unique. Another thing is that multiple boss situations, meaning we have different managers, heads that we need to cater and do all of this stuff. So might as well do all of these things in a very calm way, very productive way. And yet, that's why, the ba, part sa ato ang interview when you are going to apply. So, sorry, okay, ako, I'm working already. So, that's why, my example na ako ni siya. One of the things yun yung mapangutana is, how do you handle stress? Because, of course, stress is really part of working life. So, knowing na naana and exist ang stress, if you know how to handle your stress, then kabalo ka unsaon nimo pag handle ang imong self when you are in that particular situation. So if you are stressful and then makakam up ka og conflict that would really trigger for you to create this particular burabag argument with a coworker, and so dili gid na nimo malikayan from time to time. So another thing is that don't forget that there are two types of conflict. One is the substantive conflict. The other one is the affective conflict. So the substantive conflict focuses on the professional part or goals of a person towards the company or the organization. So purely focuses on work na siya, kanang sa workplace na to nga mahitabo. The second one is the affective, also known as personal conflicts. These are maybe unresolved around disagreements and dislikes that happens between two individuals in a company or in a certain workplace. So muna siya different types or the two types of conflict. So conflict resolution and conflict management. So conflict resolution is it involves the reduction, elimination, and possibly to terminate all forms or types of conflict. So, ang conflict management on the other side is the negative outcomes. It minimizes the negative outcomes and conflict and promotes the positive outcomes of conflict with the goal of improving the organization. So, for the companies or the management side, it is very important for us to know how to resolve this conflict because maapektuhan man ang productivity level, ang productivity nga performance sa ato ang mga employees. And bisag moingon ka nga, di bitaw mi igsuon, kauban lang mi sa trabaho, but yet this relationship would really matter because, di ba, in order for you to achieve these goals, teamwork is very important. So how would teamwork come into place if dili magkasinabot ang imuhang mga empleyado? That's why bitaw here in DTI, we have these team buildings every year for the organization to culture and to nourish the existing relationship. Kaya of course, from time to time, gap is there. Labi na kami din where ang age range namo is really different. So na aming mga millennial, na ay mga gorabel. So wide range of kanang age siya. So we need to build good relationships from time to time. That's why team buildings are done yearly. So there are 5 steps that the management would really do for them to resolve conflicts. This is one to anticipate, to prevent, identify, manage, and then resolve. So these 5 steps are the major things that a management should focus on. So anticipate is take time to obtain information that can lead to conflict. So anticipation meaning on what are the things that could possibly lead to kanang verbal disagreements of the fellow koan. So for example, sa workplace, dili mo maliking ka ng mga suya-suya, ana siya jealousy, but of course, ikaw mismo sa management would do things that would not really create or trigger these things and would lead to conflict. So next is to prevent. So develop strategies before conflict occurs. So of course, when you're granting an incentive to a particular employee, this should be kanabang klaro gid ang steps why that particular person nakakuha siya ana nga incentive or that promotion or that one. For them, ang katong mga tao sad, the other employees would get the right and proper justification. Yes, because that person deserves the position. So wala issue, wala disagreements, wala tay conflict nga mo arise. So next is identify. It's either interpersonal or procedural. Move to quickly to manage it. Of course, samtang gamay pa, manageable pa ang isa ka conflict nga ni-arise sa isa ka environment or sa isa ka workplace, management should do something about it. May it be small. Mas maayo gani nga gamay para ma-prevented na siya nga mas mo grabe na nga mo level up good siya. Next is to manage. So remember that conflict is emotional. So of course, it would really involve emotions. Primarily emotions, ang pagkatao, dignidad, uban pa integridad. So inana na siya, it's very common, especially in this type of workplace that I am in right now. I am working in a government setup. Emotions would really matter, but then at the end of the day, professionalism should always prevail. So ingon ana siya. And last is to resolve. We should not blame one person why this particular conflict arose, but we should not put into blame ang isa ka tao. That's why no, dili gid siya dapat. Management should always be fair to all, for them to identify and to, of course, maybe dili lang sa side sa employees, and pwede po i-evaluate sa management kung sa lapse niya, why did nahitabo man ni siya. So very common things where both sides, the dalang sides, identify for why the conflict or why that problem came up. So inana siya. So last part is maybe focuses on how to resolve the conflict. Of course, naaman tayo, for example, din sa amuha, if mo grabe siya, we have the Civil Service Commission to really kung medyo ano na gid siya ba administratively na nagid cases na grabe ana, depende on the conflict nga medyo ano siya. But here sa government na kung ang gitrabuhuan, we have a certain committee if medyo ano na gid siya ang case niya, they will interfere, they will conduct an investigation or do kanang correct process for them to know and to investigate what are the things that really happen, and then they will come up with a suggestion that whereabag say mo mahimo nga solution, particularly on that conflict, on that problem. So of course, with the approval of our head and director, i-implement to siya. At of course, dili pud ingon nga kuan tagaan gid ta og due process and fair enough for sa side pud sa tao nga involved. So una siya. So last is kanang about counseling. So I think most of us kanang makigstorya ka sa imong friend. It can be categorized as a counseling na siya, because kanang there are things nga i-open up di mo niya and then you will be enlightened. So same as with the management, there where I also believe that counseling or pag kanang two-way siya ba nga listening and understanding, because at that some point kung ikaw naa ka sa part sa conflict, if you are one of the person involved sa conflict, you would really think that you are the right person. You really think that kanang wala ka masayop. But then counseling would really teach you, will also enlighten you nga possibly nasayop pud ka. So counseling would really take a major barapod siya role in resolving conflicts, especially in the office or in the workplace. So with that, having this summary, I thank you guys. Siguro di man live ang akong presentation. I hope these things would retain in your mind and be of a lesson for you to keep whenever HR professionals or whatever path that you're going to take. So advance Merry Christmas. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Rose Castillo. And this has been your speaker for this afternoon. I am Lori May Collado saying bye.